space. Well, not really. Take two. Here, in the Mitten State. Welcome to Code 47, bringing you all things Star Trek. Spanning the quadrants, the best thing since the neutral zone.
And we are back. This is the Code 47 podcast on the Secret Friends Unite podcasting network. I am your humble servant, Trek Lord of West Michigan, and captain of the USS Grand Petoskey of the Starfleet International Fan Club, Charlie Carden, and joined by a very special guest tonight, this week, I should say. Didn't even have to go too far from home to track this lady down. We're recording in the same spot, but on two different locations. My wife, April Carden, is joining us. April is the new Vice Regional Coordinator of Region 13 in the Starfleet International Fan Club that I was just talking about. And so, April, please say hello.
Hello.
Hey, great to see you. April and I have been together for about 8 years. Discovered not too probably on the first date that we both enjoyed Star Trek. But April, since you're on, anytime we have anybody on the Secret Friends Unite, we give them the opportunity to talk a little bit about their air quotes geek origin story. And more part to this, your Star Trek geek origin story. So why don't you tell us a little bit about how you discovered Star Trek?
My brother, who is a few years older than me, actually introduced me to Next Gen, obviously, because of our age group. And we used to have to watch it in my parents' bedroom because my parents hated it. So they wouldn't watch it on the regular TV. So we had to sit on the waterbed in my parents' bedroom and watch it from there.
My. Oh, my goodness. Well, yes, we do what we have to do for the love of Star Trek, if there's a through line to what we do here. So very good. Well, glad to have you. And this is your first experience with podcasting, though you are very active on social media with small businesses that you represent. You do almost daily live broadcasts on your different Facebook pages, and you run a website. And I'll tell you what, I will give you a little toss out at the end, and you can talk a little bit about that. Because we never have anybody on the show that we don't give them a chance to plug themselves, but we will do it at the end. So, but anyway, let's get into the meat and potatoes. This is episode 26. We are following up last week's episode where we had Aaron and Rich on as our new rotating hosts. We brought them on together so you could hear both of them together, though Aaron had been on the previous episode talking about the end of DS9. But this is, we're still in our season ones. This is the second half of season 1 of Star Trek Voyager, and as a capper, I have to tell you that first half worse than the second half is going to be my impression. But as we have done in the past, I'm actually going to let my second chair read the name of the episode and then read the recap. I'll give my impressions, and then April will give hers, and we'll just kind of move along. So, April, without further ado, episode 9, Emanations. Tell us all about it.
Yeah, so episode 9, Emanations. Harry Kim is transported to an alien world at the same time that a dead woman's body arrives on the Voyager.
So, I feel like this was our first big Harry Kim episode, and Harry Kim is the gee golly shucks Jimmy Olsen type of fresh Starfleet graduate. Interesting enough concept. In some ways, I think it's not a bad episode. I think it really embraces kind of what Trek does, which is looking at different cultures and kind of holding up the microscope to us saying, oh, I don't really get it. What's going on? This is not my thing. This is not what things are like for us. But in still translating it back to the Starfleet ideal of IDIC, infinite diversity and infinite combinations, and the crew still tries to find a way to be respectful of the culture, this other culture's traditions, but still finding a way to rescue their own person. So believe it or not, mired in a season of really crappy episodes, I thought this one was okay. I don't know. April, what'd you think?
I would say okay is a reasonable assessment.
Okay.
It was all right. It was a little different.
Okay. Agreed.
But I did like that Harry Kim was actually the central focus for a bit of the episode, because I do like his character, even though, as you said, he's like, gee, golly gosh kind of guy.
Yeah, right.
I wouldn't mind seeing more of him.
Right. Yeah. Oh, as far as in current production, so like if he showed up in Picard, if he showed up in Picard or something else, I think it'd be cool. I'd love to see some of those Voyager actors, come back and potentially do a comedic take in Lower Decks, because that's obviously the focus of that series, and timeline wise, it would fit. So yeah, the door is open. The door is open on both of those shows, which I think is great. So, well, cool. Any other thoughts about the episode before we move on?
No.
Okay. Gotcha. Episode 10. We're into the double digits. Prime factors. April, tell us about it.
Yes, a species that could shorten Voyager's journey with a transportation device will not share its technology.
Now, I liked this episode very much. The alien race is obnoxious because they're kind of like the phony friend that everybody like, oh my God, you're so great. Let's hang out. Let's have fun. A very fair weather friend. But then when like, hey, blah, 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 this and that, we need this thing or whatever. They're just like, yeah, but we'd rather just hang out. And it seems like they were just all about getting down, because I know the one chick tried to seduce Harry Kim. But no, they have a device called a trajector, which actually gets a nice Easter egg in Star Trek Picard, because the technology survives and is unfortunately assimilated by the Borg, which is what happened to this race in the end of it, though we don't see that. But the trajector has a maximum transport range of 40,000 light years. So half of Voyager's journey home could be solved by acquiring this technology. But it's this happy-go-lucky society's one rule is that they don't share their tech. So a bulk of the episode is spent from the perspective of different characters trying to find a way to get around it. Ultimately, the very logical Tuvok makes himself the vanguard of doing it, but things go wrong. The technology can't be adapted. It almost blows the ship up, and then everything gets revealed. And Tuvok has a great line at the end of it that I really love when Janeway confronts him, and she says, next time bring your logic to me, don't use it behind my back. And he simply says, my logic was not an error, but I was. Which I thought, wow, that is a big movement thing for a Vulcan to say, because they're so stoic, they're so arrogant in their way, and for him to break down and to put kind of his friendship with Janeway ahead of his superiority of being a Vulcan, I thought that was pretty interesting for early character development. So yeah, so I like this one too. So my statement that this was I did say that this was better than the first half, so we'll see if that endures. But anyway, what are your thoughts about this one?
Janeway almost had a little bit of flirtation in this one. The whole scarf incident, the fabric,
right?
It's the introduction of her being more feminine.
Mm-hmm.
A little bit in some ways. I don't know. At least in this episode.
Right. No, and certainly it creaks back. She walks the line of being a captain and then simply being a human being. And, but you do remember that, of course, she was in a serious relationship when they got swept away to the other side of the galaxy. She was engaged to be married. And so I know, especially so early on in the show, I'm sure a lot of people are not thinking about, oh, well, screw it, we're never getting home. So like I said in the last episode, let's just all start slutting around the ship. But as the captain, that's not something that she could do even if she wanted to. So
right.
Yes, it's good to see her experience kind of some humanity. So any other thoughts?
No, I think that's it.
All right. Episode 11, and this is a doozy. I love this one. Episode 11 is called State of Flux.
Janeway and the other senior officers attempt to flesh out a spy who's sending information to the Kazon.
Ooh, I love this. What a whodunit. We get our first, I think, real taste of back home, as it were, by finding out that Seska, who is one of the Maquis crew members, it's also revealed in this episode that she shared a past romantic affiliation with Chakotay, though they obviously broke that off because he was her CO, blah, 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 even in the Maquis parlance, that she turns out to be a Cardassian spy. I would say superficially altered to appear to be a Bajoran, which, irony upon ironies. But she turns out to be a very stereotypical Cardassian with the lies and the backstabbing. And yes, we find out that she has decided all on her own that the crew of Voyager sucks, aligning with a powerful local alien species could be the way to get them home, or at least a way to get them to survive. So you see the crew kind of go through this mystery of decoding who the spy is, because she's attempting to throw off a trail, and eventually she gets caught and she ends up escaping. So that's a real kick in the nuts to Chakotay, who I was just thinking about it today, is my favorite character on Voyager. I really like Chakotay. I've kind of got a soft spot for first officers in Star Trek shows. I love Riker. I love Major Kira. That's just always kind of been my thing. So this was nice. This showed that, everybody has had a bad ex who stabbed them in the back. So this was kind of what that moment was for him, and I enjoyed it. I thought it was some good early kind of character plug-in for him. So how about you?
Yeah, she was definitely trying to play a little bit of dirty pool every so often in the episode. I found her character interesting. I feel like a lot more of the Maquis, it seemed like more of them should be taking that kind of a stance that Starfleet is doing everything wrong.
Right.
So I did like that piece because it's definitely true to the nature of that group of people.
Right. Well, I agree. And, there are fits and spurts of Maquis speaking up and speaking out of turn. I know later in the season we get another turncoat in season 2, but it seems there just seems to be less and less and less of that, and the series really shifts away from that, because if you think about it, if they had 7 years of nothing but infighting, I don't know that would make for a great TV show.
No, it would definitely get a little old.
Yeah, I don't know how they would function trying to run a ship by, basically a quarter of the crew is, pirates, and the other crew is, the Boy Scouts, and how they'd be fighting with each other. So it does come back. Seska comes back and plays a very significant role in season 2. And then you even see her again at the end of season 3 in another form. So definitely a good episode that kind of sets the table for that. So, and if I'm not mistaken, we get into a string of kind of crappy episodes. Kind of crappy, but we've got one good one, but I don't want to spoil it. So, episode 12 is Heroes and Demons. So, what do you think about this one? Tell us about it.
The Doctor must rescue crew members who were turned into light energy in a holodeck simulation of Beowulf.
Now, I'm really 50-50 on this episode, because I remember Beowulf very fondly from English class in high school. I had a teacher, Ann Mitchell, East Grand Rapids High School, which is where we live and where I went to high school. This was a favorite of hers. She taught it with a lot of passion and conviction, so much fact that, almost 30 years later, I remember it very fondly. But I like the fact that this is the Doctor's first foray. It's the first time we get to see him out of sickbay, because this is long before later seasons when he has his mobile emitter, and he's not only able to move around the ship, but also able to leave the ship and kind of become more of a central, character that doesn't have this limitation. But we're caught up in the same old holodeck malfunctioning, blah, blah, blah. We got to fix it or people are going to die. It's a trope that has been leaned on very heavily in TNG. It gets leaned on very heavily in this show, because it's funny. I remembered an early episode. You would think, well, if the Voyager is on such a power shortage, they'd never use the holodecks again. And very conveniently, it was said, well, the holodecks function on a different power grid than the rest of the ship. So it's cool to keep using them because it's not going to hurt anything. Which is dumb, and it's convenient because they still want to have holodeck stories. But I am very, very sick of that, and it's not like it ever goes away, because we see it later in the show, and we even see it in what turns out to be a great episode of DS9 with, Julian Bashir's secret agent and the whole crew. There's an explosion, and they have to be stored into the holosuite systems and to survive, and it gets played out. That one I can forgive because it was such a great episode. This one, not so much. So I was not a fan.
The Doctor briefly has a name.
I know, Lord Schweitzer. Yes, that's doesn't really roll off the tongue, but
no,
yeah.
Not really. Not really.
So, what are your other thoughts about it?
I definitely think it's kind of a forgettable episode.
Right.
But it was a way to bring the Doctor into more of the storyline.
Right. No,
instead of just being the doctor.
Yeah, just being kind of an armrest in sickbay and kind of a one-note, exposition like, well, here is like in the last episode, well, she's really a Cardassian because blah, 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 and not otherwise a part of anything. And the only blue uniform in the regular crew. So, yeah. All right. Now we're kind of tilting into some yuck. We got episode 13, which is Cathexis.
A shuttlecraft with Chakotay and Tuvok aboard is attacked. Chakotay is left brain dead while Tuvok begins acting strangely. An unknown force begins controlling crew members.
Cue the space anomaly. The thing that, if you were talking to my regular podcasting partner Todd Oxer over on SFU, is the monkey on the back of this show, particularly early on. Always it was some space anomaly that was your driving Deus Ex Machina that drove the plot. And so, yeah, this was really true of that. So, yeah, an alien attacks him. It knocks out Chakotay, but his spirit is still around and moving the stones on a medicine wheel to send them, messages because he's in sickbay. And then Tuvok why is Tuvok acting so weird? And why is he doing this and he's doing that? And it has to do, of course, with a nebula. And it was a big mess. It was a big mess. The only notable thing, and Aaron and I talked about this in the last episode, was this was the episode that fixed Tuvok's rank pips, because he had a lieutenant commander's rank pips, but he was lieutenant. This episode reflected him as lieutenant, and then in season 4 he gets promoted to lieutenant commander. So obviously they took his pip and they put it in a footlocker somewhere so they could get it back out later. But
right.
I'm a stickler, so I don't know. You got anything any bright side of this episode that I'm missing out on?
No, I just remember you complaining about it the whole time.
Yes, absolutely. That's what I do.
Yes. A shuttlecraft of the numerous shuttlecrafts.
40 shuttlecrafts by the end of the series. 40. Because they had, if you look at, because I know in our in the basement, because I have Star Trek art kind of scattered throughout our home, but I have a big concentration of it in the finished bedroom in our basement, which has a cross section of Voyager, which I've had forever, and even survived a flood in the basement of one of our old houses, and I managed to kind of cram it back into the frame so it looks okay. But adjacent to the shuttlecraft bay in this cutscene, there's an area beneath it, which is the shuttlecraft fabrication facility. So there's your answer.
Yes, exactly.
Because they built the Delta Flyer as well in season 5. So
right.
they can keep building. Yeah, so 40 shuttlecrafts in 7 years. I don't know that the Next Generation went through that many. And that ship was 10 times the size of Voyager and had 3 shuttle bays, including a real big one. So I don't know. Did they lose the shuttlecraft in this one, or was it just damaged or whatever? I don't even remember. I don't even recall.
I think it was just damaged.
Gotcha. They get it and fix it. Toss it in the fab facility. So
there you go.
Oh my gosh. All right. Well, moving on to an episode, and again, this was one that even Erin really remarked that she really liked and kind of lamented not being able to talk about it. Episode 14 is called Faces.
B'Elanna Torres is split into her human and Klingon halves by the Vidians.
Dun, dun, dun. And I got to tell you, this is, in a lot of ways, when you think about being split into literal halves, you think of what? The TOS episode, The Enemy Within, where that happens to Kirk in a transporter accident. And he's good Kirk and bad Kirk, which is, naturally an allegory to the sides of our personality that make us do bad things and then make us do good things, but how the two can't live with each other. And this is, spelled out very similarly, in the same way. And again, this brings back the Vidians, which is a race that I really dig on, because as I mentioned in the last episode, they are mercifully free of any kind of moral impediments. They need to do what they do, so they'll grab some people and I'm going to take your liver, I'm going to take your lungs, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, because it's what I need to keep dying, or it's what I think they're in pairs. Like, if you and I were a pair and I knew you needed a pair of lungs, I'd kill somebody to get you lungs. And you knew I needed a heart or a new foot or something, you'd get me a new foot, because we'd be responsible for each other. So that's why I really like the race. Loved it, that we could have seen more of them. But, again, the nature of the show is they're traveling in a straight line out of everybody's space, so they're not going to be in somebody's space forever. That race will drop off. So, but this versus The Enemy Within, which was, done very Shatnery, where he's like, I want to live, and he's hugging his double, and it's very like 60s-ish. It's an early episode of the series, so it kind of has some hokum to it. And this is, again, it's an early episode of the series, but I think it's a great study of B'Elanna saying for those parts of herself that she finds ugly, or those parts of herself that she struggles with to kind of get through the day, to simply say, you are this. This is why we didn't get through the academy. It's because of you, when it's really you're pointing, but you point the finger back at yourself, because she is me, when she's having this interaction. So I think it's fascinating to think of any of us if we were split down the middle, or if we had to meet a duplicate of yourself, which I reminded of one of my favorite episodes of The Next Generation, which is called Second Chances, season 6. Riker, you find out 8 years prior to the episode, Riker was split in a transporter accident, and one complete version of himself emerged on the ship he was in, and one complete version of himself emerged on the planet, and then they're brought back together, and they're both 100% William Thomas Riker. And then Data and Worf have a scene, and I love it. Data just says, Lieutenant, I have a question. He says, if you met a duplicate of yourself, would you find it hard to get along with him? And Worf says, yes. And Data says, why? He says, I am not easy to get along with. And Data goes, So this kind of reminds me of that. You're like, yes, no, that's because Data is zero fucks given. He's just no filter at all. So,
right.
But anyway, yeah, I love this episode. What did you think, hon?
I really liked the episode as well. I liked, honestly, the acting. B'Elanna, she did a really good job with both characters separately, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Being the human side and being the Klingon side, I just enjoyed that piece of the storyline, just watching her and her reactions and the humanity that she had when she was human. Mm-hmm. Definitely, she has obviously a softer side in her normal state than most Klingon women. So we know that she has a human side, but just seeing the two separate beings of her was very interesting.
Yeah, no, I agree. And even at the end, she, has the touching statement, well, I know that I'll always struggle with her, but I essentially I need her, which is, again, it's the allegory back to the episode of TOS. So I liked it. It's definitely a bright spot of this last half season. But for every great episode, we turn around and get a terrible episode about a character that you don't care about, and that would be episode 15, Jetrel. Tell us all about it.
A member of the
Hakonians.
I was going to say that.
Okay,
wow, there's so many different races. A race warring with the Talaxians arrives on Voyager, much to the dismay of Neelix, whose family was killed by a weapon of mass destruction this particular individual devised.
So, nobody cares about Neelix. He sucks. I will say that, it really did give Ethan Phillips, as portraying this character, a chance to kind of stretch his legs, to learn a little bit more about the character who's usually so, bouncy and happy. I think Tom Paris at one point refers to him as Hedgehog, which I think is a great way to look at him. He's like a more obnoxious Sonic the Hedgehog, I think would be a great way to put it. And it has a great guest appearance by an actor named James Sloyan, who in TNG played a Romulan officer, high-ranking Romulan officer who lied about his identity so that he could defect to the Federation and into the Enterprise in this case, because he believed that the Romulans were planning an invasion, but it really turned out to be he had been fed disinformation. The Romulan High Command was trying to get rid of him. Wonderful episode called The Defector, and he just really acted the shit out of that role. And I can see him trying to bring that same kind of gravitas to this role, but it just doesn't click with me in the same way because I don't care about Neelix. It's too early in the series for me to really have a great impression to care about him. So I feel like the portrayal of this nemesis character, who in the end turns out to be, he comes with false pretenses. He says, well, I think I can reconstitute the people on your planet that, were vaporized by doing this thing and that thing. And really what he's trying to do is he's dying himself, and he's trying to find, he's dying. No, he comes aboard and says, Neelix, you have the thing. And Neelix says, I don't want you to treat me. And as it turns out, Neelix doesn't have the thing. The guy has the thing, but his ultimate plan is to try to reconstitute people from the swarm cloud around the planet, and it doesn't work out, and then the guy dies. So it's just like, oh boy, he was noble and he tried to do a thing, but I'm left without caring. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yes. Neelix, I don't know. In the beginning, he was quite annoying. It improved a little, I think, later in the series. But yeah, I didn't love the episode. It wasn't, it was episode that wasn't really extremely memorable to me. When we rewatched it, I had forgotten pieces of it. But Neelix isn't a character that, like you said, that you get behind in the beginning, because he's not, I don't know.
Likeable in any way, shape, or form?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's not likable.
I hear you. So, all right. So episode 16. So this was the kind of the unintentional season finale. And Voyager was a little weird because they, in season 1, they had this story that has existed for the last, 25 years since this was put out. The last 4 episodes that were filmed were held back to kick off season 2. And I don't necessarily know why the reasoning was. It was maybe because, I don't think there was a writer's strike or anything like that time, but there was, I'd have to look into it, but there was a reason of some kind that they took these 4 episodes and they sprinkled them in broadcast-wise out of sequence into season 2, which makes me nuts. But the reason they're out of sequence is that in Star Trek, TNG forward, there are 5-digit star dates, starting with the number 4. It was 4, the number 4, and then when TNG started, it was 4-1 because the 4 meant season 1, then it was season 2, season 3, yada yada yada. By the time we get to this show, the first year was 4-8, and then obviously the next year would be 4-9. So as you are looking at the published star dates for season 2, there's 4-8s and 4-9s intermingled within the first 4 or 5 episodes. So it's extremely, extremely irritating to me. Or the first 6 episodes. So at any rate, this was a weak season finale when the real season finale was a very memorable episode called The 37s. In April, you'll remember this. It was the episode where Amelia Earhart and some other characters or some other people from the past were discovered in cryostasis on a planet. Does that sound familiar?
Yes.
And it was a great episode. And it would have been a great season finale, but instead we get this. We get episode 16, Learning Curve. So tell us about this one.
Tuvok trains several Maquis members who have not fully integrated into the Voyager crew. So
initially a great concept, I think, because of what we were talking about a few minutes ago. You're going to get some people who are just going to say, fuck Starfleet, and I don't want to do any of this shit. And on the Maquis, we were pirates, and we did whatever the hell we wanted, and blah, blah, blah. And all we cared about was killing Cardassians or whatever. And now they're all stuck on a Starfleet ship, and they're wearing Starfleet uniforms, and you got to say yes or no, sir, and you got to do all this stuff that they just didn't sign up for. But what choice do they have? They're on a ship, things have to be done so the ship can continue to function so that it can, go home. So they pick out a group of 4 people. You've got the sullen young 20-something who's the Bajoran kid. You got the obnoxious, 30, 40-something guy, Kenneth Dalby. You got the dumbass Bolian, and then you got the snarly woman. So yeah, you've got every stereotype. You got a good group of stereotypes. I won't say everyone, but a good group. And Tuvok has to teach them. And he's super inflexible, and they're fighting against him, and a lot of back and forth. And the B story is that the neural gel packs on the ship are malfunctioning. It turns out they have a virus, and they have to solve it somehow. And
the gel pack, the famous gel pack virus.
The famous, well, what becomes the gel pack virus,
Yes.
which was, isn't it turned out it was caused by a cheese, like a
Yes.
bacteria from cheese. So good. The famous cheese virus. So kind of failing all over the place. And again, this episode has a very sitcom-y ending where at the end, literally the last line from Dalby, who is the leader of the group of malcontents, says, well, you know, if you can bend a little and meet us halfway, we can meet you halfway too. And it's like, what? No, they're going to continue to be, he hasn't earned their respect. They're going to continue to be a pain in the ass. That's the way life actually works. So this one kind of failed for me on all levels. I don't know. And a terrible capper to the season where you're just like, that was it? Yeah. It's like, and now we're going to have to wait till the fall to see more episodes. So I don't know. Maybe I'm being too harsh. What do you think?
No, I agree. I think it seemed like I understand that the Maquis is very different from Starfleet. I get that. But they just went a little over the top with some of the characterizations, I thought.
Right, exactly. Like I said, it was kind of stereotypes 101 when they picked out these four. You know, it's like, how could they be any more one-dimensional? It's like, you know, it's like Billy Zane is the villain in Titanic. Well, he's just a bad guy, and that's all he's got going for him is that he's a rich dick. You know, it's just kind of the same thing.
I just feel like they were trying too hard. All of them are in the same situation. They're nowhere near where they want to be. So it seems like they wouldn't be quite as angry about it or annoying. They would just do the thing to try to make things work. But I just feel like they were trying too hard in this episode.
I hear it. Yes, it was a classic case of trying too hard, which I will say definitely recaps several episodes of this first season. So that takes us to the end of the season. So and this was Aaron and Rich's idea last week, is that we gave it a rating of kind of 1 to 10, 1 being the worst, 10 being the best. Or 10, 1 I hated it, 10 I loved it. So of these 8 episodes, if you were going to pick a rating between 1 and 10 overall, what would you choose?
An average overall, it'd have to be like, it's still kind of like meh. So 5, because meh.
You know, I'm thinking a solid 5, maybe even a 4. You know, because I think Aaron kind of tacked on. Kind of a point or two, like 2 points per, like 1.5 per, because there's 8 episodes. So yeah, absolutely. So, well, the good news is we can move on from it because now it's time to briefly talk about a couple of news items before we bid adieu. So first and foremost, in the city of Boston, which is kind of a special place to me. My late grandmother was from Boston. You know, I have some family back there. But that is also the hometown of the late Leonard Nimoy, the original, the classic Spock. So the city of Boston is paying special tribute to one of their favorite sons on what would have been his 90th birthday. So March 26th is notated in Boston as being Leonard Nimoy Day per this year. So that's a couple of days from when we're recording this. So you'll be listening to this next week. So it would have already gone by. So I think this is great. I think this is, it's great simply because obviously I have such an affinity for his work. April and I both love the city of Boston because of the superb Ray Donovan.
Yeah.
What's Ray Donovan's catchphrase, babe?
You done?
Anyway. Wouldn't you love to see Liev Schreiber on Star Trek being kind of a Ray Donovan-ish kind of character, like a villain, like a Khan? Yeah. Wouldn't he have been a great Khan? He would have been a great Khan. That would have been pretty sweet. So I think this is great. So in addition to this, the family is celebrating with the release of a set of collectible digital trading cards. That's pretty sweet. God, look at this picture of him at the bottom. He looks even younger than he did when he was on the show. Damn. So anyway, I love this. It's a great way to celebrate the work of this man. Also Leonard Nimoy, besides being Spock, was an accomplished director. He obviously directed Star Trek 4. He directed Star Trek 3, and he directed the 80s classic 3 Men and a Baby. Not a lot of people know about that. So pretty awesome stuff.
I did not know that.
You see, I'm a fountain of knowledge. So moving on from that story, this was great. I found this one just today, the Leonard Nimoy thing I already knew about, but I was just kind of skimming looking. But your chance hold your breath, to own your own Charlie Carden action figure is coming your way. Mego, the famous toy line from the 1970s, which was here and it went away, and it's been back for 5 or 10 years. I mean, reissuing figures kind of in that same style. They're kind of a Barbie-ish kind of style, though, with clothing, and they're not, they don't have huge boobs and little hips. Typically, they've been making some Star Trek figures so far. They've cranked out a Michael Burnham. There's a Saru. They have Q in the judge robes, which I think is awesome. You have Picard and Data, and of course Kirk and Spock. But now we're getting a Captain Pike. Yes. They actually sell these at Meijer, babe, which is nice. So they'll be easy to find because Meijer is for those who don't live in the Midwest, Meijer is our superstore, and it's actually a Grand Rapids company, which we're really proud of. But it's one of those stores that you can find. It seems like almost anything that you would need, from groceries to shoes and clothing and blah blah and toys. But yeah, we're getting from the Mego line a Captain Pike in the. I wouldn't say it was hyper accurate, but I don't care because there hasn't been a Captain Pike figure that has been modeled after Anson Mount. Oh, look at the boots, hon. That's what I need on my boots. Except for I use those same cosplay boots for a bunch of different outfits, so that wouldn't really work. I'd have to get a second pair, but I'm not to say that I wouldn't. But yeah, no, this looks very exciting. And yes, a Michael Burnham figure to go with him. So I will definitely be picking both of those up. That's great. And
I like Burnham.
Yeah, continuing to scroll down, you get the Salt Vampire from the classic episode The Man Trap, the first episode of Star Trek to ever air, making her, the Salt Vampire, the first Star Trek villain, if you will.
Yes.
So Dr. McCoy, kind of in classic short sleeve parlance. Scotty, they got a whole lot. Man, this is a little deeper in Scotty, kind of in his classic appearance. I don't know, hon, we might have to make a shelf for these. I don't know.
Oh, my.
April and I have a deal. My more traditional action figure collecting is the 6-inch style action figures. It's the Star Wars, the Black Series, Marvel Legends, the older Star Trek series from Diamond Select Toys I have down there. I have Battlestar Galactica figures as well. I have a set number of shelves in the basement, in the unfinished part of our basement, in the laundry area, which I get to visit because I do laundry in our house. I get to visit, it once or twice a week, which always makes me very happy.
Let's just clarify that I didn't force you into the basement. You
all right.
chose.
That was not my inference. Not at all. No, I was not trying to sell you down the river.
Well, the way you said, I get to visit it once or twice a week. No.
Say that I'm not hanging out. What would I be doing hanging out in the basement? First of all, litter boxes are down there. It doesn't smell great. So visiting.
I didn't force him into the basement.
Visiting is kind of the best way to handle that. So yes, no, I'm not forced into the basement. But we do have, and this was kind of at April's behest of the bookshelves in our living room, we do have a scattering of Funko Pop figures. A lot of those belong to April, and I have a few of these Mego figures of the original series I've gotten as gifts and stuff like that. So these will be a welcome addition. No, I don't think we're going to buy them all. If I had to pick one, I would obviously pick the Anson Mount figure. But this is great. It still kills me that McFarlane Toys, who has been making just a killer line of DC Comics figures, the multiverse figures, in the last 6 months to a year, of which I've started collecting. I love it. They've owned the Star Trek action figure 5-6-inch line for 3 years now, almost 3 years now, and they have made 2 figures. They made 2 figures in the beginning. They made Kirk, and they made a Picard, and they had the license to do, I think, a Burnham and a Klingon from that first season of Discovery, and then a prop Discovery phaser, and those latter 3 things got canceled, and there has been nothing since the fall of 2017. That makes me furious. I can't stand it. So I have a love-hate relationship with McFarlane Toys, which is why I'm glad to see that somebody is making products. So I like it. And with that, that's kind of the end of our show. So April, before you sing us a song out of here, you are active in a lot of things that are not related to geek culture. You are a small business person. So why don't you tell our intrepid viewers where they can find you out in the world of social media and etc.
You can go to aprilcarden.com and find all of the information on there. I also am active on Facebook, on my own personal page, and on April all year round.
Awesome. Yes, so do that. She's awesome. She's inspirational. she's my lady. She's my lobster. What do you want me to say? She is the wind beneath my wings, without a doubt. She makes all this possible.
Whatever.
So anyway, while I'm busy fluffing you up, why don't you go ahead and take us out?
For more information on Starfleet International Fan Club in Michigan and or Canada, please visit the Grand Petoskey or the Nomad on Facebook, and we can give you all of the information. Also, the Code 47 podcast is part of the Secret Friends Unite podcasting network and is produced by Todd Oxtra.
And he'll tell you how great he is. No, friends, thank you as always for joining us. We are, again, part of the Secret Friends Unite podcasting network. You can find us over on Twitter at Secret Friends U. Anything that you would love to suggest a topic about the show, ask us a question, just give us some general feedback. We are all about that, and we will read that on the program. This is one of 4 shows that we do on a weekly, bi-weekly basis. Obviously, we're here talking about Star Trek. I'm usually joined by either Aaron or Rich, who are my new rotating co-hosts. But I'm also joined on a show called The Holocron Chronicles by Mark Carabin, the Canardian, where we talk about Star Wars every other week. Co-op mode, Mark joins my prime Secret Friends Unite partner, Todd, to talk about video games, which is not my sweet spot, so I'm glad they're doing it, not me. And then, of course, every Friday, you'll hear a new episode of Secret Friends Prime, as it were. Todd and I, who have been, best friends for 25 years, talk about geek culture in general. So a lot of the stuff you hear here, also comics, movies, etc. So we do have a wonderful store over on TeePublic. You can, have merchandise, T-shirts, baseball tees, which is my new thing. I've got a couple of those. Stickers, notebooks, wall art, pillows, even just weird, just all kinds of great merch. All proceeds from that actually do go back to a charity that April and I are a part of here in the state of Michigan called the League of Enchantment, which does outreach work for children, not only here in Michigan, but really abroad. So we're talking about hospital visits, care packages, and things of that nature. So go buy some stuff, represent the Secret Friends Unite Network, and benefit kids. So leave us a 5-star review on the podcast hosting service of your choice. Also over on YouTube, all of our episodes are mirrored there, and get a fantastic prize from our digital library. So that is it. April, thank you very much for joining us. I'm glad I didn't have to look too far to find a co-host this week. Just the next spot over on the couch. And I'm going to tell you, as always, that sharing is caring, and to keep on trekking.